But first, we are awaiting the fate of the illegal immigrant convicted of groping 9 young women at a Northern Virginia high school. The grown adult, nearly 19 years old, from El Salvador, entered the country illegally under the Biden administration in 2024. Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Emily Campagno here with my co-hosts, Kaylee McEnany and Harris Faulkner. And also joining us today, Shannon Bream, Fox News Sunday anchor, chief legal correspondent, and author of the #1 New York Times best-selling book, Nothing is Impossible with God. And John Ashbrook, co-host of the Ruthless podcast. Now, last month, parents told reporters that the school tried to cover up the case and only sent a school-wide letter after multiple parents demanded a response weeks after the offenses of groping young female students were initially reported. Now, the attorney for one of the victims commending them on their bravery. Watch.
I think these girls were tremendously brave. I think that in the schools, safety is not an option, it's fundamental. And I think this should be a learning experience for everyone. Don't have adults coming to these schools.
A handful of illegal immigrants have recently been arrested in Fairfax County, Virginia, for a wide range of violent attacks, such as the murder of an infant, MS-13 executions, stabbing a mother to death at a bus stop. Critics of Fairfax County leaders say they are prioritizing criminal illegal immigrants over Americans' safety. DHS reports in 2026, illegal aliens have committed 75% of all murders in the county. And just on Friday, a woman in neighboring Arlington County, Virginia, claims that this illegal immigrant allegedly tried to rape her while waiting for a rideshare. She says he followed her, violently assaulting her, throwing her into a wall. And this man, you guessed it, has a lengthy rap sheet with at least 25 prior charges dating back to 2020. John, welcome back. We're so grateful to have you. This is your stomping grounds. What a tired pattern that we keep having to report on with the collateral damage of youth and lives and safety. It's incomprehensible.
Yeah, it's awful, Emily. And what you described about what happened in that Fairfax school is every parent's worst nightmare, every student's worst nightmare. I live not far from where that school is located. My own kids go to a different school not far from that school. And what a lot of parents have been complaining about over the years about Northern Virginia schools is that they prioritize politics over safety. And of course, Virginia just elected a new governor last fall who promised to be a moderate, but her first thing she did when she came into office was said that she wasn't going to do what it takes to remove these criminal illegals from our community. And on the Ruthless podcast, we interviewed Tom Homan about that exact situation. And he said when a governor does something like that these criminal illegals are more likely to settle in places where they feel like they can get away with it. And he thinks that they can work around her, but boy, it's just not good.
And Shannon, there's sort of a lot of compounding layers here, right? We know about the ESL program that allows adults to just hang out in high school. We have the illegal immigration protection. We have the recidivist pattern here. There's a lot going on, but again, the victims here, they have no say. All of those young girls that were groped in ways almost too graphic to describe, frankly, on live television, that's their reality, and they are 15, 14 years old. I was 12 when I was a freshman in high school, by the way.
Same. And you think about all the failures that happened along the way. This person came across the border, we're told, illegally. Where was the vetting process there? Then shows up at the school, as we're told, I think at the age of 17 or 18. What was the vetting process there about this person? Because now we're told he's 18, 19 years old, and he's a junior at the high school. So he would be going into maybe 20 as a senior. There's so many vetting questions I have through this. And I am on a text chain with a lot of Northern Virginia mamas who have kids in these schools who say they don't ever get the full story. In the beginning, you heard this attorney talking about that in some reporting on this story. They had to push and push and push to actually get the truth about what was happening with this case. And as parents, they feel like, and as women, they feel like they don't feel safe. They don't feel like their kids are safe. And when the governor makes decisions like this, which make it less likely that they're going to work with ICE, it raises a lot of questions about safety and vetting and whatever happened in this case.
Kaylee, that exact point is important here, which is that we've discussed that courts have upheld schools' duty to notify parents. And they're in the state of Virginia. They have a 24-hour notice policy, a law that demands that the schools, when it's an issue of safety, clearly this is, tells the parents. Here they had to wait weeks. And where's the accountability for that? They can sue, and they should.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the question I have is, why did Israel Christopher Flores Ortiz come first? Every step of the way. This 19-year-old came first. The kids, there were rumors for weeks, to your point, Emily, that this kid was doing this. The kids knew, but Israel came first. Why did Israel come first with the law that you mentioned, the regulation that you mentioned about parents being notified? They said that notification was delayed. Why did Israel come first as a 19-year-old man stopping around this high school? Why did Israel come first when he crossed the border illegally in 2024, planted his feet down here, and Biden released him? Israel Christopher Flores Ortiz came first before these American citizen young girls that roved this high school. He came first. Now the ball is in Spanberger's court. ICE has filed a detainer request. They do not want this man out on the streets. And ICE has said, we are once again calling for Governor Spanberger and her fellow sanctuary politicians to not release the sexual predator. But will they? And this, sadly, as you illustrated, is playing out all across the country. When I spoke to Todd Lyons this week, and I asked him about a New York Post headline, listen to this one. New York City officials refuse ICE hold for illegal immigrant accused in arson that killed 4 and injured 7. That man had a beer, sipped the beer after lighting fire to a building, and a 3-year-old was killed, and he watched people burn. ICE says, give him to us. Mom Donnie, are you going to give him to ICE? Right now, he is saying no. Why does the illegal immigrant always come first, before the 3-year-old in the burning apartment building or the young girls at Fairfax High School?
Harris, it seems that this is really difficult to be defensible. This feels so egregious in the petri dish of Virginia. There are some that might seem more gray as people protest about, you know, right, There, however, it feels this is so black and white. How is the governor and so many Congress people and local elected officials defending these policies when it's clear the damage being done?
So where is she? Where is Abigail Spanberger today? This was her policy. We've all talked about here how that's how she got into office. This was part of her candidacy, which, by the way, is in lockstep with many far-left Democrats across the country. This is what they're leaning into, and it's dangerous for the rest of us, because we really don't know a lot about some of the people who came into this country. And that ESL law that you were talking about, look, I love the fact that people are going to learn our language. I think that's great. It's going to make it safer for everybody so they can read the road signs and all that, because we have a lot of commercial driver's licenses, apparently, being given to people who shouldn't have them for a whole host of reasons, not to mention they can't read the language. But when you tell me that you're letting in male adults into high schools, where are the strong women in that high school atmosphere advocating for the young girls? I don't believe no one knew. And we're already seeing from the reporting that people knew, right? Where are those strong? You've got a female governor. Where is she today? And go ahead and defend that in front of the camera so we can ask questions and follow-ups and all those things, if you can take it. But Spanberger right now is looking at her sinking polling because her other policies that don't work hit people in the pocketbook. The woman has the worst tax policy. She is like Mom Donnie, although he hasn't really gotten anything done on them. She has. And they're taxing a lot in that state, and it's hurting them already, and it's just barely 60 days in to her being a governor. So please come to a microphone and defend what's happened to these young girls, and find some voices in those high schools who'll speak up. And if women were speaking up, and we don't know, it's because they were quieted. Find out who was quieted. We need some whistleblowers in this situation. I don't think this is over.
You know what this reminds me of? In New Hampshire, when that young girl dared to question a ridiculous policy in the locker room having a boy in it, and her father stepped in on her behalf. He was the soccer coach. He was fired, suspended without pay. So you were right. They are punished for standing up for the right thing. I can't imagine what those parents are going through, and more so what the daughters are going through as they are groped in the hallways by a grown man who shouldn't be here.
Lynn Youngkin became the governor of that state. Remember Loudoun County? Right. Over some of these same issues. Like, it is unbelievable. It is a stubborn disease, and somebody's got to shake it.
Indeed. Well, we're starting here. Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.